Who should make the U.S. Men's National Team Nations League final roster? That's what we're going to be discussing in today's video with only 23 guys in 2 games. The first one being on June 15th against Mexico, and the final being on June 18th against the winner of the Canada and Panama game. The expectation should be for us to win a trophy. Anything less than that, for me, in my opinion, is a failure. But we get 23 guys in 2 games, so in my opinion, this should be basically the A team. And I think we really should be running the same 11 starters for both these games, kind of putting our best 11 out there going for a trophy. Now, we do have a bit of a coaching problem. We did have our intern leave, so we did have a new coach. So we'll see how that plays out. But again, if we have enough talent, I think it should be able to win us the Nations League. But we'll see. So we're going to be discussing our 23-man roster for this tournament. So let's get straight into that. All right, so for goalkeepers, I have Matt Turner, Sean Johnson, and Zach Steffen. Matt Turner is the undisputed #1 in both these games. Pretty straightforward. We'll see how that goes, but he showed big time in big games for us in the past. Sean Johnson I have as our third goalkeeper. Not going to play in this camp, but just need a third goalkeeper. And if he just takes 2 weeks away from Toronto FC, instead of going to, say, like the Gold Cup, I think it'll be much better for the U.S. and his club team as well. And I have Zach Steffen. He had a long season with Middlesbrough. Overall, pretty good season, though. I have him as my backup in case Matt Turner gets hurt. Now, I do want to have Ethan Horvath as my goalkeeper for the Gold Cup, so I'm going to leave him out of this roster because he had a really long season with Luton Town, played all 46 games, and he also had a really good showing in the semifinal and playoff promotion to get into the Premier League. So give him a few weeks off and then give him the Gold Cup. That's what I would do for me. So these are 3 goalkeepers that I think we should have for this camp, but Matt Turner is pretty obviously the #1. As far as outside backs go, I have Anthony Robinson and Serginho Dest. They're the undisputed starters. Now, Serginho Dest kind of always does get subbed off at around the 75-minute mark. So for me, I have Joe Scally and Brian Reynolds. Both these guys play on the left or the right side. Very comfortable in possession. I thought Brian Reynolds had a pretty good game against Granada, but I do want to see him against higher competition because I thought he had a pretty good season over in Belgium, and it's going to be interesting to see where he ends up this offseason. But I still think he has a really high potential, very good on the ball, very good athleticism, pretty good going forward, has a really nice cross. Joe Scally has been very consistent for Borussia Mönchengladbach. Hasn't played the past few weeks, but once again, just a really nice player to have off the bench as well. If a guy like Serginho Dest gets tired, Anthony Robinson is going to probably be playing 90 minutes of both these games as well, because that's kind of just what he's known for. But I think Serginho Dest had a rough season, but again, still a really talented player in there. As long as he's focused, I think we're going to have no problems with Anthony Robinson and Serginho Dest being our outside back starters for this camp. All right, so for my center backs, I have Chris Richards, Miles Robinson, Austin Trusty, and Mark McKenzie. Unfortunately, both Cameron Carter-Vickers and Tierman are going to be hurt and out for this camp. And you do also have the case of John Brooks, who played a lot in the second half of the season for Hoffenheim. Some good, some bad, but he did have the escape relegation zone, and for the most part is in pretty good form. But I just don't think the U.S. bring him back after 2 years in one of these camps with very little turnaround time, and very few games. I just don't think it makes a lot of sense. I think I'd go with kind of the familiar faces and guys who've just been with the team as of more recently. So for me, Chris Richards is undisputed starter at #1, can play as a left center back or as a right center back, comfortable with both feet, good in distribution, comfortable defending in transition, and defending in a low block, really good in the air as well. So I think for me, Chris Richards is my undisputed starter at #1. Miles Robinson has been very consistent for the U.S. as well over the past couple years. I thought he had a pretty good showing against El Salvador a couple months ago, and it's been pretty good for landing out of the season. I'm not sure how I feel about Richards and Robinson starting together, because the last time they started together in Canada and World Cup qualifying a year and a half ago, they kind of had a few debacles and didn't really have a great game together, just some communication errors. But I do think if it were up to me, I probably would start Richards and Robinson, but I do have a few questions because they kind of do have some similar skill sets. But we'll see. And then for me, Austin Trusty had a pretty good season with Birmingham. Mark McKenzie had a great season for Genk as well, scored a lot of goals. Really good asset to have on set pieces, really good in the air. Both of these guys played in Granada about 2 months ago and had pretty good showings, even though it was lower competition. But I just think with the form that they gave for their club teams and the lack of options that we have, for me, Trusty, McKenzie are no-brainer call-ups. But again, I think if it's up to me, I'm going to go with Chris Richards on the left, Miles Robinson on the right. Both two players that can play and defend in transition, are good in the air, can progress the ball forward, although I do think Richards is a little bit better at doing it. But we'll see. I don't think Mexico really has as much of a pace as Canada does, and Canada is really good in transition as well, so we'll kind of have to see how the new coach sets up. If it's a 4-back, 5-back, we'll see. But if it's a 4-back, I think I definitely want to go with Richards and Robinson for sure. All right, so for my defensive midfielders, I have Tyler Adams and Johnny Cardoso. Now, Tyler Adams is definitely not 100%, but I kind of want to make it like last Nations League 2 years ago, where you did have Tyler Adams, having that locker room presence, our captain, especially the new coach. I think that'd be great to have. And even if he's 60, 70, 80%, if he can come off the bench in one of these games to help close out a game, I think that'd be wonderful to have. And I have Johnny Cardoso as kind of one of those deeper sitting players to bring off the bench just in case. He's definitely not a starter, but has been in pretty good form in Brazil, and I definitely think deserves a call-up, considering we don't have a lot good options. Kellen Acosta is also hurt right now, and I don't really feel comfortable bringing in a guy like Tanner Tessman, who's still young and hasn't gotten a cap. I just think Tyler Adams' presence in the locker room and his leadership would just be a really nice asset to have in this game, even if he doesn't get on the field. All right, so for my center mids, guys can play as an 8 or a 10. I have Weston McKennie, Eunice Musa, Gio Reyna, and Luca De La Torre. For me, especially in that first game against Mexico, I have Weston McKennie and Eunice Musa. McKennie playing that deeper kind of hybrid 6-8, and Eunice Musa as that 8. And I also have Gio Reyna at 10 for that Mexico game as well. McKennie and Musa, just I think a great duo, can play in a pivot. McKennie, kind of that guy in the air, has a really high, nice motor. Pretty good at progressing the ball forward and is that destroyer as well. Eunice Musa, very comfortable on the ball. I mean, it's just so hard taking him off the ball. Super technical, just kind of goes where he wants to go. McKennie and Musa dominated Mexico last time they played him, and I think it was Cincinnati, but I would love to play them in the pivot. And I have Gio Reyna in the 10 as well. Just want him to get on the ball in good positions to pick out those runners. He's going to give Edson Alvarez a hard time too. And I also would love to run McKennie, Musa, Reyna again in that Canada game a few days later if we're able to get past Mexico. But once again, I would love to see this kind of, especially giving Reyna opportunity in the 10 because he's played as mostly as a winger for us in the past, but I do think this camp would be a great opportunity for him to play in a high competitive game in the number 10 position where he's going to really thrive. And if he's got players around him like Tim Way and Pulisic, I think that'd be really great for him to have. And I have Luca De La Torre as a guy off the bench, can play as a 6 or an 8, especially sitting at one of those deeper players in the pivot for sure. Very comfortable from a deeper position, getting on the ball, progressing it forward. It's pretty comfortable dribbling as well. It kind of is pretty sneaky fast too. So for me, these 4 center midfielder call-ups are no-brainers as well, and I'll do is have a couple wingers like Brendan Anderson and Taylor Booth. They can kind of slide in the midfield if really needed. But for me, these are the 4 center mids for this camp, and they're no-brainers for sure. All right, so for my wingers, I have Christian Pulisic, Tim Weah, Brendan Anderson, and Taylor Booth. For me, Pulisic and Tim Weah are 100% starters in this game. Pulisic on the right, Tim Weah on the left. And both these guys should be going close to 90 minutes in both of these games as well. Pulisic has torn apart Mexico before, and Tim Weah also had a really good showing against Mexico last time we played them. So we'll see how that goes. Tim Weah, I just really like his presence, especially with a guy like Gio Reyna on the field. To move in behind those lines, run off the ball, and just open up space for others. He's a really good cross as well. Pulisic kind of had a rough second half of the season after the World Cup with Chelsea, but still really good players. Played against Mexico before in these types of games. Played in finals before. Very good on the ball. We know his qualities, what he can bring to the table. He'll score clutch goals for us. So for me, Pulisic and Weah should get a lion's share of these minutes in this camp. Now, Brendan Anderson didn't have a great second half of the season with Leeds United, but is still talented, has a really high motor, high work rate. Is still decent on the ball. Could be a nice option to have the bench as well in case of injury or just kind of fatigue as well. And Taylor Booth for me is that 4th option that can play on the right wing, left wing. It can also tuck into midfield if we need him to as well. I thought he had a really good season over in Holland. He's going to have a lot of interest this summer for clubs calling for his name. But we'll see how that goes. I just think Taylor Booth is just better than Zendejas for me. And you have Kevin Paredes. I would have loved to have him in this camp, but he's with U20s at the moment. But for me, these are the 4 wingers, and they're kind of just no-brainer call-ups. But again, Pulisic and Weah should get the lion's share of these minutes in both of these games. And finally, for strikers, I have Ricardo Pepi and Florian Balogun. Lovely to have Mr. Balogun join our program. I think he's a really nice player to have. Really good off the ball, is a lethal finisher, kind of a similar profile to Ricardo Pepi. So we'll have 2 really good forwards moving forward. And since it's only 23 guys, unfortunately, we only should bring 2 strikers to this camp with our midfield options and winger options as well. So Sargent is going to be the odd man out, although I would love to give him the Gold Cup. But Ricardo Pepi and Florian Balogun, I think both great players to have. For me, I would love to start Balogun in both these games. I just think he's a little bit better than Pepi, a little bit better moving off the ball, and is a little bit more lethal finishing in the box. I think he'll give Mexico a lot of problems. But if the coaching staff says Balogun's never played for the U.S. before, we'll give Ricardo Pepi the start. I'm not really going to be too mad at that. I think Ricardo Pepi is still a great player to have. But again, especially if Balogun kind of struggles or Pepi struggles, vice versa, you can have one of these guys off the bench as well. So just 2 great players to have. So lovely to have this striker partnership rotating in between. So we'll see how that goes. But again, very excited to have Mr. Balogun join this program for sure. All right, so that's going to do it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you can as well. Really looking forward to these games, but again, only 23 guys and 2 games in pretty short turnaround. But really looking forward to this camp. Would love to get a trophy. Again, that should be the expectation. Anything less than that, I think, would be deemed as a failure. But looking forward to these games. Make sure to hit those comments down below. Let me know who you would love to have on this roster that I missed. But once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.